Ici, il me dit.
Okay, so we are about to begin.
Hello, how much time do we want to continue to wait? Jennifer at Manav.
Okay, we are beginning now. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Okay. So my name is Jennifer Bonge. I'm representing the women. I'm coordinating this meeting on behalf of the Women and African Women and Gender Constituency. It is the Learning and Exchange program in delivering the feminist climate justice agenda. I have with me on the call Mana, who is going to be representing the African Women and Gender Constituency. Hello, Mana, are you here?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Mana, I can hear you.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry, I'm just trying to activate my camera. I need like 10 seconds. Sorry. Okay, can you see me?
Yes, Mana, I can see
Yes,
you.
we can see you, Manav.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm glad.
Yes, we can hear you.
Went and showcase as they doing it, whereas it was the action of civil society.
Yeah, just a reminder, if you're not speaking, please just mute yourself. So, hi everyone, I am Manal. I'm currently I'm from Morocco, and if you don't know where Morocco is, it's in North Africa, and I'm currently also one of the representatives on behalf of North Africa at the WGC. But before I tell you more about who I am and what is WGC, what is WGC Africa, and who is organizing this training, and what is this training about, I am going to just do a little fun icebreaker to just get to know a little bit more each other and see if you know a little bit more about, well, what this training is going to be about. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you can, please click on it. And once you click on it, you will be directed to, well, a list of questions. And now I'm going to share my screen. This is going to take like 5 minutes. And if you're having some issues joining, you can just go to this website, menti.com, and then you can put this number. I'm sorry, the questions are in English. They're not, unfortunately, they're not translated. There was no way to translate it. But so, yeah, so once you click in, I'm going to share the link here in the chat if people just joined. Okay, here is it. And so once you click in, you're going to see a map of Africa, and you can click, like you can put a pin on where you are journeying from. Okay, let's give it like 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, so if you have people from Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia. Oh, nice. And I see 2 in Nigeria, Namibia again. Okay, so we have East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa. Nice. Oh, we have 2 people from Kenya. Do we have by any chance any people like me from North Africa? No? No, North African people, where are you? Well, West Africa is leading, I see, and Southern Africa too. Okay, this is nice. Let's see, next question. What region are you joining from? So this is like we're getting even more specific. Okay, is most represented. And this is very useful because you know, Africa is such a very big and diverse continent, and our respective regions do face climate change differently and do have a lot of gender equality issue that we face differently. And so it's useful to know which regions are represented. East Africa is leading. Okay. My East African sister. Okay, fun question. What is something fun you did this summer? So for some of us, summer has not ended yet. For me, very sadly, it ended. I just started university again. This is my last year. I just started it last week. And so my summer vacation is over. Really over. But I got to do a couple of fun things. Well, I slept a lot. I also got to visit a couple of new cities that I've never been to in Morocco. Oh, sorry. It's still winter in the southern hemisphere. Yep. Well, I hope it's not raining too much. Oh, somebody bonded. Port Harcourt. What's that? That sounds fun. Read a lot, volunteering, Netflix, time with family, work. Okay, I hope at least the work was fun. Watch movies. All right, okay. Really walks. I could never. I think I averaged this summer, I think I averaged like around 1,000 or 2 a day. That's it. Like, and also for the people who are in the chats, for the people who speak French or the people who were not able to access this link, you can just respond in the chat and tell us all the fun things you did. Okay, somebody was advocating, made art, slept a lot. I also slept a lot. Okay, this is nice. I'm really glad that all of you got a very nice and very hammer. So then, done with the fun questions. Now we're like actual, you know, hard questions a little bit. Well, what do you know about feminist climate justice? And this is a term that we're going to have like repeated over and over during this training. And so it would be very, you know, if you already heard this term before, if you hear about it, but like never got to like learn more about it, if this is like a core component of your work, and your advocacy. And so it would be very useful to know sort of if people within this call already know more about this term. Okay, there's no responses so far. That makes me sad a little bit. That breaks my heart a little. Well, since there is no, okay, this is weird. Oh, okay, well, there's responses. Oh, okay. Feminist approach, core component of my work, finance for women, feminist lens. I love the answers. Justice for all women and girls, part of the network. Advocacy, empowerment. These are very nice. These are very nice answers. Keep them coming. Because this is the very, like a huge core of this is a huge core of our identity within the WGC, and also within this training is actually one of the main, well, principles that we stand by and that you will learn more about throughout this training, as well as how to advocate for it, but also to implement it within the work that you do, either in advocacy or in research or in business, whatever way you are advocating for women and girls in climate. Okay, financial value for women, empowerment, finance. I see a lot of these money, financial terms. Okay, this is nice. And with that, do I have any other questions? Let's see. Thank you all. Okay, well, and then very easy question. I was supposed to do this question before the last one, but well, what do you know about climate change? Because climate change is a very abstract content. It's a very abstract word that we hear all the time. Climate change is happening. But what do you know about it? Are you in your community already living the impacts of climate change? What are those impacts on your community? I saw different people from East Africa, North Africa, from various parts of Africa. What are the impacts that you're living? What do you think is the linkage between climate change and, for example, women or gender or this training? Really anything that comes to your mind. Okay, I see a lot of, well, very technical words. I see finance, adaptation, mitigation, emissions. Okay. Flash floods. Okay, give it like 5 more seconds because we're running out of time. And I didn't realize people. Abstract and complex, extreme weather, changing the patterns, important for all, loss and damage. Okay. Okay, thank you all for all of the answers. You can keep them coming. And I have very good news for all of you who are responding to this. A lot of what was mentioned here is already part of our training, and you will get to know more about it throughout this training, specifically like when I saw loss and damage. And this brings me to, okay, we'll stop sharing. And now I'll just like very briefly in like 2 minutes, I will very briefly talk a little bit about who we are as WGC, as well as what you can expect out of these 3 days. So my name is Manal. I think I already introduced myself. I come from Morocco, and I am the North Africa focal point within WGC Africa. And so just to give you a bit of an overview about WGC Africa, we work within WGC. And if you're a climate advocate or you've been in these climate spaces, you know that the main and most substantial platform for climate decision making or policy making around climate change is called the UNFCCC, which also stands for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And within this space, a lot of civil society, unfortunately, it's a member state driven process. So it's mostly for member states and our governments to go there and negotiate on behalf of our countries. But there's space for civil society as well to contribute, and that is through constituencies. And so within this, yeah, hi.
Call your attention that we have the interpreter who is following you to interpret for the French-speaking participants. So maybe you can reduce the pace so that the interpreter
Oh
will
my
be able
God,
to.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, I will do that. Oh my God, yeah, thank you for letting me know. I'm so sorry. I get so passionate and I start speaking so quickly. So I was saying just very briefly that within the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, there's space for civil society and for us people passionate about advocating for climate change to get involved. And we have this space called WGC, which is the UNFCCC official constituency for women and gender. And within that space, we as women and also people of different genders, we like gather and we organize ourselves to advocate for women and girls in not only the African continent, but worldwide. And this has been happening for many years now. But in 2021, specifically during ahead of COP27, we realized that there is a need for representation of the perspective of the perspectives of the African women. Because in COP27, it was the first time COP was in Africa in like 3 to 4 years, actually more. The one COP before that was in 2016, so it was a gap of 4 plus 2. It was a gap of around 6 years. And in COP27, we as African women decided to bring our perspective to the table. And within this WGC, this already existing platform, we decided to create WGC African Task Force, or also known as AWGC. And in COP27, we mobilized a lot of women from across the continent to write a demands document on what we want to see from our leaders in COP27 and beyond. And since then, we have been well formalized within WGC, and now we have elected 5 focal points from every region within the continent. And so we have North Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. And all of these 5 regions, we try to bring in the perspectives of our region to ultimately voice out what African women and girls need, and also what they want from the upcoming COP, but also from the climate decision-making processes in general. And why we decided to organize this training is that we realized that in Africa, very sadly, there is a huge gap of knowledge and resources. Often we are very impacted by climate change in our daily day-to-day lives, but we do not unfortunately know how to advocate for it because spaces in policy are either limited, or because there's not enough knowledge, or because these spaces, these global spaces such as COP, are very overwhelming. And so we decided to do this training in order to solve that gap and empower and mobilize as many of you to go to these processes, especially in the UNFCCC and in the upcoming COP29 Azerbaijan, and go there to voice out your thoughts and your opinions and your demands, but also bring in and influence and make a very concrete change and difference in the overall final policy outcomes of these spaces. So sorry, that was a that was a bit, well, not very brief overview. And we curated a list of really amazing speakers and really amazing trainers who know so much, who have a lot of expertise about different topics such as loss and damage, mobilization, climate finance, etc. And if you follow through these 3 days, you will, by the end of these 3 days, you will be qualified and you will be more than ready to go to these places and make change, and also make concrete change in your community as well. So thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you for applying. We're so happy to have you, and I hope you enjoy and you make the most out of these 3 days of training. Thank you. And now I pass it on to Jennifer. Sorry for taking so much time.
Thank you very much, Mana. Thank you for that icebreaker. It was really engaging. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thank you very much, Mana. So moving on, I would like to introduce our speaker, our facilitator for this first session on understanding the concept of climate change, climate justice in the context of Africa, Loretta Boniface. Hello, Loretta, are you on the call?
Hello, Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Hi, Loretta. Yes, I can hear you. Good to have you join.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn on my video just to add a face to me, and because I'm having a very heavy network glitch here, so I'll turn it off almost immediately. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Loretta. Also, I apologize. I'm not able to turn on my video. There's something wrong. I don't know what is happening, but my video is not coming up. Okay, good to see you, Loretta. So Loretta Boniface is a climate negotiator. She's an award-winning climate action advocate and the co-founder of EcoCycle. She's very passionate about recycling waste, green environment, and advocating for climate justice. Good to have you here, Loretta.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joining in from Nigeria. Good afternoon. I want to send a special appreciation to Women Environmental Program and also partners for organizing this very great training for young female climate activists across Africa. I understand we have about 5 regions in this training. And sorry, I know I have an interpreter following up, so I have to slow down a bit. I also understand that we have persons joining from diverse backgrounds. So for the sake of that, I'm really going to slow down and also use basic words in this presentation today. So I'm really happy to be here. My name is Loretta Boniface from Nigeria. I'm an environmentalist. So can you see my screen?
Not yet, but Loretta, I need to do the introduction and overview of the project, and I will get back to you.
Okay, all right.
You can hold
Please
on.
go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
It's okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so as we all got the emails, this training is for African female leaders and advocate for climate justice across the continent. And it's going to be a 3 days virtual cycle. And I'm hoping that by the end of 3 days, we've gotten a lot of knowledge and then we are able to understand how negotiations, especially in line with the UNFCCC processes, are done. And I just want to also give us a brief overview of this project. This project is funded by the Urgent African Fund, and it is co-coordinated by Women Environmental Program, WEP Nigeria, Women for a Change Cameroon, African Women's Organization, Akina Mamawa, and the Group of Development for Women and Girls, and it is coordinated on behalf of the African Women and Gender Constituency, as Mana has introduced earlier. This project seeks to build the knowledge of women, African women leaders across the continent in understanding Hello, sorry for the break. Okay, so this project is targeted at building alliance across African female leaders in movement and advocating for climate justice agenda, the African climate justice agenda. And we also hope that by the end of these 3 days, we'll be able to strengthen the capacities of grassroots women on UNFCCC processes and climate negotiation. We also hope that by the end of this project, we're able to harness and harness collective power and technical expertise to influence the African climate agenda and position ahead of the COP29. Throughout this period, this 3 days period, we'll be learning on the general gender and climate concepts as enshrined in the UNFCCC Convention. We'll also be looking at the processes and climate negotiations, including developing technical papers, policy statements, and how to make submissions. And the overall goal of this project is to build alliance and movements, and also strengthen partnership for collective advocacy and activism for feminist climate justice advocates across Africa. So I hope that we are able to meet your expectations for joining this training. And over to you, Loretta.
All right, thank you so much, Jennifer. Okay, I would like to share my screen now. And I'm seeing that the host disabled attendees is screen sharing. So please, if you can enable me to share my screen. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, Loretta.
Okay. Can you also hear me?
Yes, clear.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, good afternoon. I'm joining from Nigeria, and this is about 12 o'clock, almost 1 p.m. I'm really excited to be here today. Always excited to speak to women and also young people out there on very critical issues when it comes to climate change. I'm particularly grateful to Women Environmental Program and partners for organizing this very important workshop. It is no news that women are largely underrepresented, and these are the kind of platforms that will get us ready and also prepare us for the journey ahead and also for participation, because it wouldn't be fine that we find ourselves in rooms where we're supposed to be and we don't have enough information, we don't have enough knowledge to engage. That would be a shame to us. So it's really important that we pay critical attentions to some of this information that I'll be sharing. The next 3 days, we'll be having a lot of conversations here. But then starting with understanding the concept of climate justice, which is very, very important. When you talk about climate justice in Africa, it's a compound word that is really, really particular to Africa and close to our hearts, because for young people and also for me, the concept of climate justice surpass just mere talk. It requires action. It requires real action, both on ground, at all level. You just have to be active in order to achieve climate justice for Africa. So My task today is to present this on the understanding of concept of climate justice, African perspective, and sorry, I understand I have an interpreter following, and sorry, I'll be slow and also be gentle with my words because I know when it comes to climate change, we just have a lot and a lot of acronyms, a lot of jargons, but I'll try to be very, very minimal and very calm with my words. So for our table of content, today we'll be looking at the definition of climate justice and its relationship with climate change. Also looking at historical facts and context of climate injustice in Africa. We would look at climate change impact and vulnerabilities in Africa. Sorry, can you still hear me? Jennifer, please say something.
Yes, Loretta, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So again, we'll be looking at gender justice, why gender matters, and we're looking at how climate justice can be achieved in Africa and also funding climate action in Africa. So this are the 7 or 6 items that I'll be looking at on today's lesson. So yeah, so like I said earlier, climate justice is a very, very critical and a very compound word when you come to the African context. It's really important and close to our hearts because every region, every community is faced with this impact, very devastating impact. No community at all is immune. Your community, my community, wherever you think there's no way to run to, there's no way you go on earth currently, and you find out that, oh, I'm really safe from climate change, the impact, I'm safe from whatever it brings to them. There's no running place. Every community is faced with this crisis. So what do we have to do is to take action. What about these actions? Are these actions fair on Africa? Is there justice? Is there equity? Is there equality in these actions? That's what we're going to look at today. But before then, we have 2 words here. We have climate and we have justice. So we have to look at those words critically. And when you talk about climate, it's climate change. Whatever thing you talk about climate, the environment, climate change, whatever is happening, the changes around the globe, the changes in Africa happening currently, the devastating
Hello,
impacts.
Loretta.
Sorry,
Sorry,
yeah?
I just wanted to call your attention again that there's an interpreter.
Sorry?
I just wanted to call your attention that we have an interpreter who is interpreting
Oh my,
for the
so sorry.
francophone.
So sorry. Okay, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that. So the climate is changing and human activities are contributing to this, and the impact are already felt by people, animals, plants globally. However, the impacts of climate change are not evenly distributed. You have some regions that are really vulnerable, some regions that are faced with more impact, and you have some regions that are really coping, trying to build adaptive capacity to this impact, despite the poor resources, the poverty rate in these regions. They are really trying because they're faced with this impact and they're trying to move on. So that's what we see in the world today. So the poorest countries and the most vulnerable people within them, particularly those economy are dependent, those whose economy are dependent on Africa. When you come to Africa, you find out that agriculture is our backbone. You go to your community today, my community today, there's no community in Africa that doesn't farm, that doesn't take up farming as a way or a sustainable livelihood for everyone. So we as Africa are dependent on agriculture. So those communities that are dependent on agriculture will be mostly affected despite having contributed least to climate change. So that is the situation on the ground. So we have a situation, we have where a livelihood we depend on, and this livelihood is being threatened. Not about agriculture alone, we have a lot of livelihoods that are also threatened by this climate change. Despite the fact that we're trying to cope with little resources, we are faced with this impact. So what to do? Then we talk about justice. What is justice? Justice is generally understood to mean that which is right, what is fair, what is appropriate and deserved, with justice being achieved when an unjust act is redressed. So we look at this context of African climate change and the impact, and we say it is unjust because before you talk about justice, there must be injustice somewhere and somehow before you talk about, oh, we need justice for this. There was an injustice. So where's the injustice coming from? Because we feel that we have contributed little, about 3 to 4% of the global greenhouse gas emission, but then we're faced with this impact staring us at our faces, staring our mothers at the faces, staring our young people at the faces every day. It's a nightmare. I as a young person, I grew up in the face of climate change. Though I don't understand. I didn't understand what the impact was all about. I didn't even understand it was climate change. But then it had my family migrated from where we were born, and we migrated to some other place where we're living now. So these are just the least kind of impact. You have more devastating impact of climate change we face with in communities across Africa. So essentially, climate justice means trying to ensure that people and planet are treated fairly in a way that in which trying to reduce further climate change, for example, by cutting down amount of fossil fuel we burn to produce energy, known as mitigation. So mitigation is the act of cutting down, like cutting down emissions from carbon, cutting down emissions from methane, cutting down emission from nitrogen. So all the greenhouse gases, the stage where they are being cut off is known as mitigation, and adapt to the changes we have brought about in the climate. For example, by developing crops that are resistant to drought, where rainfall level have dropped as a result of climate change. So these are some of the adaptive capacity. We're going to look at more adaptive measures and adaptive actions that are currently taken by Africa, and also what we're supposed to do as Africans. So yeah, I mentioned earlier that for us to cry out for justice, that means there is a line of injustice that has been done against us as Africans. So climate change injustice is the unequal impact of climate change on different communities and population, particularly those who are marginalized and vulnerable. We have communities that are really vulnerable to the impact of climate change in Africa, communities that are already in the verge of you find communities that are already having communal clashes, farmer-headed clashes, and climate change will only come to exacerbate some of this impact and some of these clashes. The hazard only come to make things worsen and heighten the situation. So these are the vulnerabilities we're looking at, and this often means that people who have contributed the least to climate crisis are disproportionately affected by its consequences. Injustice in the unequal impact of climate change on different communities and population, particularly those who are marginalized and vulnerable. Yeah, this often means that people who have contributed the least suffer the most now. Africa, who have contributed the least, your community, my community, we don't have, if I throw a question to the group now, I ask how many communities, how many of you grew up in a community where you have industries around your community? You find out that some of us, we just grew up to see maybe one industry in the city and even none in our communities, to show you that we have contributed little to greenhouse gas emission. But then here we are, because it is evenly, global warming happens everywhere around. It doesn't choose a particular region, or it doesn't choose because there's an emission here, I'm going to particularly affect those people. It is something that has to do with the atmosphere. So it rotates around, it hovers around the atmosphere. So even if you're Africa, even if you don't emit much, it is staring at you on the face. So we're going to look at a little historic fact about climate justice in Africa. So we all know that Africa contributes little greenhouse gas emission. I've mentioned that in the course of my lesson today, but is seriously suffering from devastating impact of climate change. So this is like the fact, and this is the line where we hold as climate advocates in Africa. We have contributed little. I'm going to give you like a scenario. So we have a picture to what we're doing. So imagine a household where you have a little boy, like the person who was born last. In Nigeria, we call the last born, and we are all eating and eating to your satisfaction. And just the moment where this last child happens to fish a spoon to put in his mouth, you say no more eating. And you are all expected to do the same level of work in the house. So it is, if that means that injustice have been done against this little child. And if he cries out for injustice, that means he wants a fair treatment. He wants the fact that since food is being apportioned to everybody here, I should have the right to eat in too. If there's a work, because I have ate less, if there's work should also be apportioned to me in the percentage of the food I've eaten. I'm just trying to paint a literal picture to all this. So the Africans Agenda 2063, which was concluded in 2013, recognizes climate change as a major challenge for the continent's development. So climate change, Africa happens to be a continent that is currently developing. That's why all the African countries, the 54 countries, are known as developing countries. And that's why we belong to the group of 77 and China. We are all known as developing countries. And we understand and recognize the Africa Agenda, recognize climate change as a major challenge. So it is a major challenge to what we have. It will affect development in your community. It will affect development in my community. It will affect the road network in my community. It will affect the water system in your community. That is what it will do. It's going to tamper with development. It's a major challenge for Africa as a continent and the countries in Africa. So research shows that Global North has emitted 92% of the CO2 in the atmosphere, while Africa has emitted just 4%. That is the harsh reality we are living with currently. The impact of climate change hits every community in Africa, despite our negligible contribution to global warming, and makes Africa the most vulnerable. Among all the continents in the world, Africa stands as the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Polluters, that's the global north, which have emitted 92%, are known as polluters, keep making empty promises, thereby not meeting up with obligations. This is a harsh fact and reality we've been faced with as Africans. Since agriculture is the backbone of Africa's economy, employing 60% of its population, climate change has devastating effect on food security. So agriculture is established as the backbone of Africa. I've said that earlier. We all understand that in our community, in my community, in your community, we prioritize Africa as our source of agriculture as our source of livelihood. And this has employed 60% of our population in Africa. So climate change has devastating effect on food security in the drought-prone sub-Saharan countries. So we have climate change, we have the impact of climate change, which is really particular to a lot of regions. And in the sub-Saharan countries, they are prone to drought. We're all going to see what in the coming slides, we're going to see what droughts are, how the impact of droughts is really affecting countries. But this region, the sub-Saharan countries in Africa, are really prone to the impact of climate change on their on their agriculture because of drought. So between 2012 and 2020, the number of undernourished people in that region increased by 45.6%, and it is still increasing. We are all suffering from this impact of food security. The impact of climate change on food security is all felt. In Nigeria this year, there was hike in price of about 180% hike in price of food items. A normal tomato plate that an average man can afford was nearly, like, even the rich couldn't afford at some point. That was the point where we went to because of the impact. It's all felt across countries in Africa. Your community is not left out. My own is not left out. The rich is not left out. The poor. It's going to affect everybody. So Sub-Saharan Africa is home to more than half of the world's extreme poor, with 400 million people. The poorest live in rural areas and work in agriculture, where climate change is hitting hardest. It is women and girls who are particularly affected. When climate change hits, in 2022, in Nigeria, we were faced with flooding. About 600 people lost their lives. Livelihood were lost. A lot of diseases came to being. And it affected more women because in the face of drought, in the face of flooding, it is the woman, it is the girls that are being affected. In the face of drought, it is the women that goes out to miles away to look for water that the household will consume. So bringing women and girls at the center of this crisis. I just want to set a background to how this whole impact affects we, the women, more than any other gender. Yeah, so as they are more likely than men to be already living in poverty. On top of this, the population of the sub-Saharan Africa is expected to triple this century, increasing from 1.6 billion in 2019 to 3.7 billion in 2100. So we are faced with this impact. We are developing as a country. Our population is still increasing, to show you that in the next coming years, if nothing is done now, if justice is not served, we're going to go into a catastrophic change that is irreversible, because we have a growing population in Africa. So climate change poses a threat to the future generation. So not only this generation, the future generation, because we are increasing in number, we're increasing in population, the threats, the effects would also affect the upcoming and the coming generation. So it doesn't only stop here. So while we are pushing for climate justice, while we're pushing for equity and fairness, we're also doing that on behalf of the young generation and also the generations to come. If we don't do it now, nobody will do it, and they will be faced with the same or even more severe impact. So this is supposed to be a breakout section, but I don't know. Jennifer, do you have because we're supposed to answer these questions in group, from the explanation of what climate change is and also the impact, I would like us to create a group of 4 and answer these questions in your group. What are the most consequences? Hello?
Okay. I was just trying to say, agree with that. Okay, we can have the breakout. We just need to get the message across to the Francophone participants so that they would also indicate I can try to indicate so that we can allocate breakout rooms for them.
Okay. Please, if you can do that, I would like us to do this in less than 5 minutes. Just a quick one, just the most visible consequence of climate change you see in your community, and also what is it impacting? Is it impacting on your food? Is it causing poverty? Is it impacting on your health? Whatever, I just want to hear from our participants today.
Okay, Loretta. Okay. Can anyone hear me? Can the participants hear me? Please use the reaction if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I want to announce that the Francophone speaking participants, the French speaking participants should indicate on their names, put like FR on their names, so that we'll be able to assign the breakout rooms for them to access the conversation or the breakout session in French. So if you are from any French-speaking country or you are participating in this training in French, please kindly add FR to your name so that the IT can go ahead to allocate your breakout rooms for you.
Okay, Jennifer, I think to save time, I'll just do this. We will just throw this question to the participant and just raise your hand and you can answer the question. I think that should just go well to save time for us.
S'il vous plaît.
Jennifer, can you hear me?
I really got lost. I am from Sudan. Where to go for the breakout session? Fatima Ahmed.
Okay, Fatima. We've not assigned breakout sessions. We are trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are going to, Loretta, I think this is going to work. So we are just going to go ahead and assign groups to people, and then this group work will be pasted in.
Okay, please do just paste it. We just have 3 minutes to answer this question, and we'll just come back to the main group and assign each person from a group to come tell us about the group and what.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, Jennifer.
Yes, hello.
Allô, nous sommes les francophones, donc l'interprétation est très mal, on ne comprend, comment, on capte difficilement les français, donc l'interprétation, je ne sais pas s'il peut aussi modifier quoi.
Okay, so I'm trying to
Bon,
understand
au niveau
you
des
too, but
questions
I
ici,
think
on n'a pas encore saisi qu'est-ce qu'on a dit par rapport aux questions, par rapport au groupe, je ne sais pas qu'est-ce qu'on a dit.
Yeah, so I'm one of the participants. People have started using the chat, so I think we can go by the chat. And those who want to raise their hands.
Quelles sont les
Jennifer.
conséquences?
Okay,
Les
Jennifer,
conséquences
can you hear anyone? Jennifer, are you still here?
Quelles sont les conséquences visibles?
hello, Loretta, I'm here. I was just trying to
Okay.
figure it out. Can you hear me?
Okay, please, if you do, just
okay,
let
so
me
maybe
know.
we'll just take the hands that are lifted and the hands that are raised, they will share their thoughts on these questions. And I will also check up on the French
les effets directs, okay.
to hear from them also. So I will take, I will look at, let me go through the hands and take people who are going to speak.
Okay. Oui, c'est bon. On peut maintenant continuer.
Okay, so we have Blessing David. Please, you can go ahead and speak.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. For me, the first question, what is visible in my environment, is either you have excessive rainfall or you have drought. And the resultant impact of this is a food shortage crisis. Because if you have too much of rain, the farmlands will be flooded and it will destroy crops. Or if there is drought also, and there is no proper irrigation, it also affects farm produce. And the triple effect is that the prices of these foods will just skyrocket, as the speaker mentioned, over 180%, even much more. I think that was a very fair estimate in my own opinion, because I'm speaking from Nigeria, Edo State. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. Loretta, are you here? Hello.
L'interprète est perdu. L'interprète est perdu en français, s'il te plaît.
Excusez-moi, les participants francophones, est-ce que les questions sont claires pour vous maintenant ou bien je me reprends?
Hello everyone, I'm trying to get Loretta back on the call.
Excusez-moi, les participants des pays francophones, est-ce que les questions sont assez claires pour vous maintenant? Ou bien je vous aide à traduire encore?
Vous pouvez nous aider. Sinon, nous avons aussi un souci. Est-ce que nous allons entrer dans des groupes? On va travailler dans des groupes.
Hello everyone, I'm sorry for the breakout. I think Loretta is having network issues, so I'm trying to get her back on the phone so that she can respond to the responses that participants are bringing.
Oui, nous attendons la suite. La suite, c'est comment? On va entrer dans les groupes. Ah, on répond dans
Okay, so when we're trying to connect Loretta back to the phone, Beatrice, I can see your hand. Please go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much. I live in Cameroon, and what is very obvious in my community from climate change and natural disaster is affecting agriculture, it's affecting health.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Loretta. Okay, you are back.
Hello,
Can
Jennifer.
you hear me? Yes,
Yes,
Loretta,
I
can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I was answering the question and I said, what is very obvious in my community is climate change and natural disaster affecting agriculture, affecting health, especially women's health, and affecting access to clean potable water. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coordinating this. I think you should enable me to share my screen again, so we'll continue. So apologies, there was a heavy technical glitch. I was honestly trying to join again.
Okay, Loretta, I think you can go ahead and share your screen. It's been enabled. Okay, so we have two persons have spoken. The last speaker just said for her from Cameroon, Climate change and other natural disasters have affected agriculture in Cameroon. It has also affected the health, especially the health of women. It has also affected the access to potable clean water. Beatrice, I hope I captured all that you mentioned.
All right, thank you so much. I think I heard from Beatrice too, when she said climate change is affecting agriculture, women's health, and access to potable water. So, sorry, apologies, I missed the other response, but I know the group head. And sorry, Jennifer, you want to say anything?
No, no problem. I wanted to ask if we should continue or you want to go back to the
Okay,
session.
we just have to continue with the section. Thank you so much for the breakout, and I wish I had what everyone had said. But just to tell you that climate change, reiterate on what I said earlier, that no community is immune. You see, far Cameroon, it's affecting agriculture. When you hear someone from the Eastern Africa, you will still hear agriculture. When you listen to someone from Southern Africa, you can still hear, to show you that we have peculiar issues, but then we have one compound or one fundamental issue that is really disturbing and also devastating for Africa as a continent, which is agriculture.
Hello, Loretta. Just to call your attention again, the French interpreter.
Okay, thank you so much.
Please, thank you.
Okay, so thank you. So that section was going to prepare us for the next slide, which we're going to talk about the climate hazard and also the impact of climate change in Africa. If you look closely, you're going to see a map trying to identify for each region the impact of climate change there. You see Northern Africa in Egypt have severe drought there. We have sea level rising in the Horn of Africa, affected by recurring drought. In Eastern Africa, we have the Great Lake and also vulnerability, the shrinking of the Great Lake, and also vulnerability on agriculture also, and change in rainfall pattern. In Western Africa, we also have the sea level rise. We also have the drought. I mentioned earlier that in 2022, there was a very devastating flooding that happened in almost all the parts of the country, and it led to about 600 lives being lost, livelihood, properties destroyed. People became a complete shadow of themselves. Communities were inundated with water. Till date, there are people that have not gone back to their community and to their ancestral homes. So these are the kind of losses, these are the kind of damages we're faced with as result the impact of climate change in Africa. So the hazard, one thing I want to make clear is that we have climate hazards, which are like the um the the hazards are those occurrences that lead to the impact, those things that occur, those events that leads to the impact. So heat wave is a hazard, wildfire is a hazard, flood is a hazard, drought is a hazard, sandstorm or dust storm is a hazard. While heat wave can impact, the impact is rising temperature. Heat wave can also, the impact can also be water shortage. The impact can also be loss of livelihood. The impact can also be loss of species. The impact can also be food insecurity. The impact can also be more health risks. The impact can also be poverty and displacement. Wildfire, which is also a hazard, can also have this impact from rising temperature, water shortage, loss of livelihood, loss of species. Floods is also an hazard that can also have this impact in communities. Water shortage, loss of livelihood, loss of species, food insecurity, more health risks, poverty and displacement. Likewise, sandstorm. So I want us to differentiate between the hazard and the impact. For a lot of us, I see we interchange it. We call the impact the hazard, we call hazard impact. Hazard are what causes the impact, if we're clear on that. So this is like most of the hazard we're faced with in Africa as a continent, and also it is impacting our jobs, loss of livelihood, loss of species. I know of a lot of species where when I was growing up, there were a lot of trees that I go back to my community today and I don't find them. It is no longer there. We talk about poverty, displacement. I spoke earlier about how we migrated from where we were born, where we knew to be our home, to somewhere where we're living now. And this was because of the crisis, because of shortage in food and also land. So this is the issue where we're faced with. It's a harsh reality that we are faced with as young people and as communities, as women, most importantly, that are in the center of this crisis. So now let's talk about how climate justice can be achieved in Africa. We've talked a lot about the problem. We've talked about the impacts, the hazard. Let's talk about how the justice we're looking for can be achieved in Africa. So the concept of climate justice has been recognized in international agreements since 1992, addressing the unequal responsibilities and capacities of nations in addressing climate change. So in 1992, there was a treaty that brought about the establishment of the United Nations Framework Convention of on climate change. And this built up from 1972 during the Earth Summit in Stockholm, when the Earth came together and say, there's a problem, how do we solve it? So building up to the Rio Conference and 1992 treaty that established 3 conventions, the UNFCCC, the UNCCD, and Convention on Biodiversity, Biological Diversity. That was the 3 conventions that was set. So in each of these treaties, it addressed the unequal responsibilities, noting that in Africa, we have emitted just a little, and also noting the capacity of nations in addressing climate change. We know as African nations, we have a lot of nations in Africa, a lot of countries that are still wallowing in poverty and also lack of resources. It was also recognized in some of those national agreements and treaties. So we know that to be like one of the ways, like one of the fundamental ways that climate justice has been tried to be achieved, especially when you come to Africa. So secondly, reducing greenhouse emission. And here I put reduce their greenhouse emission, because I gave an illustration earlier about a plate of food for an household that eventually when the last child is about to eat, you say, no more eating, let's go to work. So there should be someone that will reduce his own portion for the other person to survive. So according to the common and differentiated responsibility, to the level that will prevent dangerous human-induced interference with the climate system. So whatever we do, mitigation is a way forward. That is the climate action we're looking at. When you talk about climate action, it's about 2 approaches. It's either you're mitigating as a community or you're adapting. But then concurrently, you must do the both of them to survive and to achieve climate justice. So thirdly, we talk about providing short and long-term climate finance. Climate finance is a big thing. The justice we are looking for today, if you ask everyone, it is embedded in finance, in funds. How do we get funds to pioneer, to push climate justice and climate action in Africa? This is what we are looking for. And we've had a lot of promises from the 10 billion that built up to $100 billion that was promised to developed countries to help them adapt to the impact of climate change. And these promises has not been met. A lot of developed countries have been withdrawn from some of these commitments. So that is the harsh reality we're faced with. Notwithstanding, there are also a lot of funds, a lot of bilateral grants, a lot of multilateral grants that still come to communities. A lot of people are still reaching out to countries to get funding for Africa to implement climate action. So this has been noted as one of the ways climate justice can be achieved, through uninterrupted funding. So fourthly, we talk about capacity building. So to ensure climate justice, we just have to ensure again capacity building and technology transfer for Africa, just like we're doing on this call today. This training is to build the capacity of young feminists for climate justice, So without this capacity, without getting yourself informed, you eventually get to the place where you're supposed to be served justice and you don't know the kind of justice you're supposed to be served because you are not informed. So for climate justice to be achieved, we have to be informed, we have to build our capacity, we have to be open to knowledge and understanding of even the context in which we are in. So third, we have to robustly invest in women and youth to effectively engage and hone their voices. So investing in women, investing in youth is, I think, is a sustainable way to achieving climate justice in Africa. When there's fair representation, women understand their issues. Our issues are peculiar. We don't need any other person to go and speak on our behalf. We need that representation, just like young people. We need our voices to be heard. You need to support these women to go to even the decision-making tables, to make decisions that affect, to make inclusive decisions for Africa and African women. And also, lastly, innovation. To achieve climate justice in Africa, as women, as young people, we just have to be open and trigger our thought towards innovation, bring in innovation that would help us cope. In energy, we have a lot of African countries already have energy, their energy transition plan. We also have a lot of adaptation plans, but we need innovations that will fuel these processes. We need innovations that will keep Africa at the heart of every other region or every other continent. So this is how climate justice can be achieved in Africa. So building from 1992, I gave a brief history on what happened in 1992 till now. There's been some events and milestones that have been achieved to ensuring climate justice and achieving climate justice in Africa. And one is the COP27 in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, which was a very memorable moment for a lot of Africans. So in 2022, the Climate Summit in Egypt marked a significant milestone for climate justice in Africa, the establishment of the Loss and Damage Funds. I understand that I also followed with good knowledge on how the loss and damage issue were being discussed until in 2022, when it was established. It was a very relieving moment and it was a win for Africa as a continent. So the fund is to help developing countries, which the countries in Africa are developing countries, to cope with the irreversible impact of climate change, as this was a major victory for African nations. So secondly, we have the African Union Climate Action Plan, which is another milestone and also event. The African Union has developed a comprehensive climate action plan that aims to promote sustainable development, climate resilience, and climate justice across the continent. Thirdly, we had the Climate Summit in 2023 last year, bringing together African leaders to talk about the way forward, to talk about justice for Africa. And this, at the end of this summit, it recognized that climate action must be harnessed as an opportunity for green investments and innovation for all African countries. And that was a very big one. It was a summit that brought together African leaders to talk, and the highlights of it, which was talking about innovations, which was talking about green investment for Africa. We should look beyond this problem and looking at how to harness our resources to be a solution and a viable solution for us as a continent. So let's talk about gender. Why gender matter in all of these issues. We've been talking about this issue. I know I gave a brief overview of how gender, especially women, are in the center of this crisis, but just to buttress, women constitute a large percentage of the world's population, and half of the women in the world are active in agriculture. We have established the fact that climate change affects agriculture, especially in African countries. So the figure is 60%, and in low-income food deficit countries, 70%. Reducing poverty by means of growth in Africa's agricultural sector is therefore of particular benefit to women. It also may be the case that in some instances, women do not have access to weather and climate services. It is important that all individuals be provided with access to this service in order to enhance their individual resilience and adaptive capacity. So women find themselves in the center because a lot of women engage in agriculture. If you go to a lot of communities in Africa, you find that women are the ones championing agriculture. That happened to be why we are at the center of this crisis. So also note that women often bear the brunt of this climate disaster. They depend more heavily on natural resources like water, like firewood, meaning that if these items become scarce, they may need to travel further for them to really get these items. When there's scarcity in water, women will travel miles away. When there's scarcity in some of those items like firewood, and they have to travel miles away to go and fetch. So if there's no climate justice now, if we don't push for climate justice as a continent, as a people, as a woman who is informed, it is having a dire consequences on some and another woman in another community somewhere that is not informed. So these are the vulnerabilities, especially why it relates to gender and why women are in the center of this. So for climate justice to work in Africa, we need three things: a better way of decision that include the voices of all those who have been affected by climate change, the voices of women, the voices of children, the voices of all the vulnerable groups, the persons living with disability. We just have to bring the voices of everybody in decision-making processes. They should not be like a particular group always going to make decisions for other people that have been affected or other vulnerable groups. Secondly, to ensure that the cost and benefit of meeting the challenge of climate change are spread out fairly according to responsibilities and abilities, called distributional justice. So this is calling for equity, for equality in the distribution. The benefit, the cost should be distributed according to your responsibility and according to your ability. And thirdly, to think about how the need of the future generation and non-human beings who do not have a voice is currently in current decisions can be better considered in the decision making, called sustainability. So we need to ensure sustainability, that not just only this generation, that the coming generation, the next generation, and generations to come are also included in the decisions that will be made today by me and you. If we don't have this, if we don't factor in how to bring in these voices and also to bring the interests of the generations to be born in the decisions today, that means it's going to affect, because what the impact of climate change we are faced today was a decision that was made years ago. So if we don't correct it by making the right decisions now, it's going to affect another generation to come. So yeah, we have a case study about the multiple benefits of supporting response to climate change in Africa. And this is a case study of Uganda. And this is a story of a clean cooking innovation that was taken to a community in Uganda. So Uganda's strategy for climate change adaptation and mitigation. Uganda has prioritized the reducing deforestation and increasing reforestation as key strategy to combat climate change since 1990. The country has lost over 25% of its forest cover, primarily due to the use of fuel wood for cooking. This deforestation not only contributes to greenhouse gas emission, but also destabilize the soil, regulates the local climate, and negatively impact livelihood of local people. The Uganda Carbon Bureau is working to address this issue by promoting the use of more efficient cooking stoves that require less fuel wood. This stove offers several benefits, including reduced greenhouse gas emission, decreased deforestation, and improve indoor air quality. Additionally, communities using this stove can participate in carbon market, receiving payments for the carbon saving they achieve. This case study demonstrates how innovative intervention can help address climate injustice and mitigate the impact of climate change in Africa. So this is a story in Eastern Africa, where a community that is really faced with the impact of climate change and also deforestation was increasing, thought of a way to start investing in clean cooking stove. Personally, I led a project in Nigeria 2 years ago on clean cooking and briquette making in Guruku community for women. And these women are currently engaging in this activity, producing briquettes for themselves and also selling in the community, also creating sustainable livelihood for them and cutting down emissions, helping them adapt to sustainable livelihood, bringing from the agricultural waste to produce clean cooking briquettes they use for their everyday source of cooking energy. So this is a very important and a very responsive project that was held in Uganda and Eastern Africa, and a very great innovative intervention that is helping address climate injustice in that region. So we have a second case study, response to climate change in Nigeria. So the first continental scale study of climate change literacy rate across Africa shows the public understanding of climate change in Africa is low. Without the understanding of climate change, we can't even understand the problem. How do I explain to a child growing up? How do I explain to a child growing up that there's a problem and you need to start setting yourself for towards a transformational path as a young person? It is through education, through the understanding of what the impact is all about, and through the understanding of what climate change is, through the understanding of what mitigation and adaptation is as a young person in Africa. So the gender gap in climate change literacy is a global phenomenon, but this is particularly acute in Africa, and they need to be directly addressed as women are often more vulnerable to climate change impact. Women, this research has shown like a gender gap in climate literacy, showing that women are often not too informed about this climate change impact. So therefore, we need to develop a gender transformative approach to boost climate change literacy, to reduce this specific vulnerability and support more equitable and transformative response to climate change. So this intervention is brought by EcoCycle, an organization in Nigeria, youth-led organization, they developed an innovative card game that aimed to bridge environmental education gap and inspire climate action among young people with focus on women and girls through promoting an achievement of more sustainable future. So this innovative game is redefining environmental sustainability, even in poor and even communities that don't have access to digital platforms. This card can reach to the more and even local and grassroots communities to engage and understand climate change. So this is a super innovation by an organization in Nigeria that is responding to climate illiteracy in different regions. This game is currently available in 5 countries across Africa. So what will your actions be after all that has been said, all that have been done? As a young person, as a woman, what will your actions be? First, you need to be a strong advocate for climate justice. Wherever you are, in your workplace, in your school, whatever platform you find yourself, you need to be a strong advocate for climate justice. To your government, you need to start engaging your government as an individual. Ask your public representative what they are doing concerning international commitment. Some of the fundings I talk about, some of this commitment, what is your country? What is the representative? What is the focal person in your country? What are they doing? The ministry, the environmental protection agencies, the climate change agencies in your country, what are they doing concerning this international commitment under the UNFCCC to support your country to undertake adaptation and mitigation action? You need to start lobbying to ensure that they are on track with climate actions. You need to start lobbying to understand where they stand, and how you can even influence some of those decisions, even at the policy level, the national policy level in your country. Thirdly, you need to join a campaign for inclusive climate justice in your community. Inclusive climate justice means that even in the fairness we are asking for in Africa, in African communities, there are vulnerable groups that shouldn't be left out. The persons living with disability, the elderly women, the children, they must be inclusive. They must be included in our pursuit and in our fight for climate injustice. So in the campaign, you just have to have a strategic approach for inclusion in this climate justice journey. Fourthly, use your social media as a tool for fighting against climate justice. This fourth one is really important, also close to my heart. As a young person, when I started engaging in climate action, it was the tool I used. My social media was like fire. I remember a campaign when our former president signed the Climate Change Act and the implementation was so slow. And I took up a campaign along with some other young people, and we started engaging them, asking questions. The Know Your Climate Change campaign was a thing then. Asking questions to our lawmakers, asking questions to the president, tagging them, where are we at? What is happening to implementation? And in few months, they appointed the Director General and inaugurated the council in progress to implementation. And I remember when the Minister for Environment saw me at the COP27, he was like, Loretta, you're always tagging me. You're always disturbing my social media. I said, that is what to do. So that is how you can be in your community or wherever you are in this part of the world or in this part of Africa, and use your social media as a tool for activism. And fifth, you have to be innovative. As a young person, drive innovation in your mind. What can I do to help my community? How can I bring up, what innovation can I bring up to put the voices of my community together and put it at another level, or pushing it to the decision-making level? Start springing up innovations. I talked about the case study 1 on clean cooking stove, the case study 2 on an innovative climate education card game that is helping bridge climate illiteracy in Africa. So start thinking as a young person, as a woman, how do you support with your innovation or through innovation? And lastly, you have to drive innovation. You have to drive initiative that will promote feminist climate justice movement in your community. Start thinking of initiatives, start thinking of programs that will promote feminist climate justice movement in your community. That's really important, because you are informed, you should help another woman or another gender to be informed out there, to be able, because climate change needs collective action. The climate justice we are asking for cannot be achieved by one person, cannot be achieved by one community. It must be achieved by all communities in Africa put together to say, this is what we want as a continent. So thank you so much, and thank you again for listening.
Wow. Thank you so much, Loretta. Thank you. I don't know for the participants, but I've really been learning so much. It's really been an amazing session. Thank you so much, Loretta. We've listened to Loretta, and her closing message was quite very direct and very, very provoking. It says, what will your actions and advocacy be as women, as African women who are advocating for a just climate for everyone? Through this session, we also learned how climate change affects Africa as a continent, and especially women in Africa. We've also learned that despite that, people will say things like Africa do not contribute so much to the emission, but then we are living under the same atmosphere and climate, which means climate change affects everyone across the globe. Wherever you are, climate change will affect you, whether we are emitting or not. It's just for us to drive our initiatives that will help us to mitigate and adapt. And as women that are mostly and most vulnerable to the impact of climate change, it's very important, as she highlighted in her closing message, that we first need to hold ourselves accountable as individuals. What are we doing? What are our actions? And then we also have to hold our leaders accountable. And she made mention of social media as a tool, because sometimes you'll be wondering, how do you key into this advocacy? How can you act? But social media is a very vital tool for you to drive this initiative. Like she just showed us in Uganda how they've come up with innovative ideas to have these cooking stoves to help African women cope with the impact of climate change. And we have to join the community. In our community, you can be the lead, you can be the voice that will start advocating or start sharing this advocacy. You don't even need so much, just within your household. You can be that one person who is always calling people's attention to sustainable habits and behaviors that will help us combat the impact of climate change on us as African women. I hope that we're able to take this message and also create awareness as we go on. So moving forward, we would like to take questions. If there are any questions or comments anyone has, I think for the French participant, maybe they can use the chat box so that we can read, and then Loretta can translate it and read, and Loretta will throw light on these questions if there are any. If you also have contribution, you can indicate by raising your hands so that you will be permitted to speak. I also want to inform the participants that there's going to be an attendance that will be dropped in the chat box. Please ensure to fill this attendance. Like it was stated in your emails that you need 100% attendance to be able to meet the criteria for the certification after a training. So please ensure to fill the attendance when it's dropped in the comment in the chat box. So we'll take questions now. Please indicate by raising your hands. Okay, I see a hand. Rose, if you can hear me, please go ahead, Rose.
All right, Loretta. Thank you very much, Jennifer. And Loretta, thank you for the detailed and very simplified presentation. As you rightly said at the initial stage, even a novice within the gender and climate justice space will very much understand whatever you've presented. You've really brought it down to the level of the low literate activists. So thank you very much. My question is around, you made mention of carbon markets. And I just want to know, because there's a whole lot of conversation within the feminist spaces regarding this kind of intervention as a form of climate action. And I want to find out, as gender and climate justice activists, is this something that we would like to recommend as a key climate action intervention within whichever spaces we want to find ourselves? Because I know there's a whole lot of, confusion regarding how the processes are being implemented and how these carbon credits are even calculated. So I would really like you to throw a bit more light on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rose. Loretta, are you here?
Yeah, so just to say that I'm based in Ghana and I work for the African Women's Development Fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Rose. Loretta,
okay, yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, Rose from Ghana. Thank you. So you made mention, you asked question on carbon market and if it's a solution you can recommend for the feminist climate movement. The issue on carbon market in Africa, it's quite a complicated one, in which as African
Hello, Loretta. Seems we have lost you. We can't hear you. Hello, Loretta, are you still on the call? Okay, so I think while we try to get Loretta back, maybe we'll take the next question so that when she comes, she can respond to the next question and the question Madame Rose had asked.
Oui, s'il vous plaît, j'ai une question. Je peux poser en français ou quoi? Je ne connais pas l'anglais, je peux poser en français. Je pense que vous allez... Il faut que j'écrive en français dans le chat. Ok, ça va. Merci.
Hello, everybody. We are trying to get Loretta back on the call. I think her internet had disconnected her and she needs to respond to the question. Please just give it a little time. Contributions, please, if you have any contribution, not a question, please, you can raise your hand so that you'll be given permission to speak. For our French participants, you can drop your contributions in the comment box. Okay, Faustina Araba.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. I wanted to say something about what Rose asked about the carbon credits. I have been in the clean cooking sector for a long time. Indeed, it was first inaugurated the whole world. This is where the clean cooking program started in Ghana. And what I know, the little I know, was that it used to be, as far as carbon credits were concerned, for the clean cooking sector, one got the credits from the number of stoves, improved cook stoves the person was able to produce. And what that happened, when that happened, they gave you some money, you know, for having been able to produce those cook stoves. And these are measured by the CSIR, Industrial and Research Center, who usually looked at the stoves. They have some machines to be able to detect the percentage of carbon emissions saved by the various type of stoves. So initially it used to be gold standard or platinum or something, and they were giving like $50,000 or something to also improve on what they were doing. I know the Ghana government, the EPA, has held a couple of workshops on carbon credits, which the country is undertaking, and maybe I'll talk to Rose after we finish and send her a couple of information that we got from the EPA, you know, and also internationally, we've had workshops and on carbon credits and all that. It's an interesting thing. Now, the carbon credits in the forestry sector, it used to be the forestry sector, if you are able to cultivate, replace, cut down trees with new seedlings and all that, you got credit from that. You got carbon credits for that because then you were saving the trees and also you were planting new trees and all that. But that became unprofitable. And so a lot of companies that were funding those places left, but they came to the clean cooking sector and there's a lot of money there for improvement. Unfortunately, in Ghana, the clean cooking sector went so down, you know, for I don't know what reasons. The companies couldn't scale up because they didn't have enough funding and all that. It's regenerated again, but it's very slow. And like Rose said, it's a bit complex, the calculations and all that. It's a bit complex, but it's also profitable, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faustina. So I would like to connect, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
yeah.
you so much,
Let's talk
Faustina and
after.
Rose.
Okay.
Already meeting some of our target for this program, which is to build alliance, which we are seeing happening now. Thank you very much, Faustina, for throwing more light. Of course, the carbon market is it's novel to most of us in Africa, but it's quite interesting, like Faustina had mentioned, and it will be very good to get to find more information and networks you can connect with, just like Faustina and Rose have connected now, to learn more of how we can take advantage and benefit from the carbon market. So we have Blessing. Blessing, if you can hear me, go on. We're still trying to add
All right.
back to the call.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Though Loretta is not here now, it was a wonderful presentation. Couple of observations and contributions. I'm looking at it from the angle of stakeholders management via our communication strategy. The feminist climate justice agenda, it's for all. It affects everybody, irrespective of your gender. During Loretta's presentation, it was very obvious that when a woman suffers, the entire family suffers. So I would want to, my contribution is that I think our communication strategy, maybe we need to tweak it a little bit, because in this part of the world, which is Africa, it is almost sounding like it is their thing. So when we need help, we reach out to the male folks and say, oh, please, government, please come and be part of this. But I think if we tweak our communication strategy to make everyone understand that though the subject matter, the word is feminist, but the impact and what we are talking about, climate changes, affect everybody. So that's what, because while she was delivering her lecture, I kept hearing female young folks, the people in government, as we know, I'm from Nigeria, basically, really, they are not that young, and majority of them are male. So our communication strategy, I think we need to tweak it to make it all inclusive, such that we do not see the male counterpart as coming to help, but that they see themselves as key stakeholders, and then we all drive it equally, and then we get the result that we are looking for. That's just the contribution that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Blessing. That is noted. And of course, and truly, the role of the feminist or African feminist is to ensure the well-being of all humans. Of course, if you look at the core mandate of African feminism, it's working towards ensuring that we have a world that is devoid of marginalization. But I don't know if Loretta was here, she would share more light to her thoughts and perspective. But I believe that when we talk about issues as sensitive as climate justice, we are trying to put out people who are most vulnerable to the impact of climate change. You know that definitely we are affected by climate change differently. And as African feminist advocates, we are trying to see how women can also move from being the victims to also decision makers. Well, that is well noted. And thank you very much. I see in the comment section, we are having a lot of comments on interest in learning or talking about the carbon market. So I think we'll look out. This is why we are actually having this session, to be able to connect our participants and African feminist climate justice advocates to opportunities and networks for them to learn. So we have your contacts, and then we'll look at how we can sort out these informations and learning opportunities specifically to the carbon market or discussions around green development to share with you. So we'll ensure we'll work on that. Do we have any more hands up? Can anyone hear me? Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so there are no more questions or contributions or feedback from the session. So just to put out again, we have shared the form. Please fill the form as it is an attendance. It will be used to measure your criteria and qualification for the end of this training. And I want to announce that we're supposed to have 2 sessions today, but due to some emergencies, our second facilitator could not make it today.
Where is the form, please?
There's been a link in the chat box. Please check the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Doreen, please check the chat box. The form is in the chat box. It will be dropped again in case you missed it. It will be dropped again.
I first left due to network issues, so I lost that chat box.
Okay, it will be reshared. Please check again. Okay, so as I was saying, our second facilitator could not make it today. So that session on loss and damage under the UNFCCC has been shifted to Friday. It will be, we'll communicate more details with you via mails and the platform we created for easy conversation. And also for tomorrow, we'll be having 2 sessions, and the training will be starting the same time as we started today. And the 2 facilitators will be on board to take us through the sessions. I will also share the program of events for tomorrow. And for tomorrow, we're also going to be having a pre and a post test. The pre-test will be shared today via mails and on the WhatsApp platform. And the post test will be shared after the sessions tomorrow. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your commitment to this session. To the French participants, I hope that the interpretation will improve tomorrow, because I've seen a lot of concerns on the interpretation. Please bear with us, and we hope that by tomorrow we'll have better interpretation for you. So if there are no more concerns.
Sorry, Jennifer, I have a question. Sorry, I was hoping to have this at a tail end. I was just wondering, given that we're going to really be getting a lot of information from this, is it possible that in the end that would also have a session where we can help African women access the funding? Because more often than not, people are equipped with information, but now when it comes to action, getting the women at the COP, getting their names beyond COP, because there's usually COP and then COP, and there are other sessions that issues about Africa are discussed, but they are discussed without African women. So I'm sorry to jump the gun, but I was just wondering if this is one of the priorities you have. And then another thing is also on the funding, because there are amalgam of organizations here. There are NGOs, there are CBOs, there are individuals in their private capacities. Will you be having sessions where either other CBOs, NGOs, or individuals in their private capacities, including but not limited to journalists, can access avenues whereby they're able to apply for funds at the onset of the year, not at the end of the year, that will help them now know which sections or which conferences to attend, so that by the end of the year, they're really equipped in the areas they're working on, if it's adaptation, if it's mitigation, loss and damage, just basically sections whereby we are able to even have subcommittees and people are able to contribute to them. Thank you. I know that's a long question, but if we could get
yes,
perfect.
Thank you very much, Imali. So tomorrow, one of the sessions we are having tomorrow is on climate finance. And it's part of the objectives of the session that African advocates as yourself and others will be able to learn more on how to access finance for advocacy. And like I responded earlier, the goal of this project is not just to have this 3-day session and end it here. There's a network, there's the general AWGC, the AWGC network, that's the African Women and Gender Constituency, which will be sharing links with you to be able to join. There'll be a form you will fill. In that group, you will find a lot of information that is always shared. And also on our parts, whenever we have information as to access such fundings, we ensure to share with you and your network, even across your regions and countries as it may be. So yes, tomorrow we'll be talking more extensively on climate finance, and the facilitator, I hope the facilitator will be able to answer most of the questions you have also brought up, as she will be addressing the issue of climate finance for African advocates. I hope that makes sense, Amali.
Yes, it does. Thank you for answering. On the latter bit, I'll ask tomorrow again.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Loretta just joined in. Loretta, we are sorry we missed you points, and we're just about to round up. We've already rounded up, maybe actually. If you have any parting words, you can.
Yeah, like what is it?
How are you feeling?
I'm there.
Hello, everybody. I believe there are no more Okay, I see a hand. Martina Olua, if you can hear me, you can unmute and speak.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm from Kenya, Dr. Martina, and my concern is as participants in this training program, is there a possibility that going forward, we can be able to put in some of those proposals through the WGC? Probably they would get better weight and would facilitate funding for the activities that we are undertaking at the grassroots level. Probably that's my concern and my thinking, if we could get a way in which the umbrella body can be able to, we can use it as a vehicle for submitting our proposals for funding. Thank you.
Okay, so Martina, thank you for your question. I may not have the capacity to respond. If Mana is not on the call, she has some technical issues. If Mana was on the call, she will throw more light, but maybe we'll save your question tomorrow. Mana will be here, and we'll ask her as the representative of the general network. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So for those who were on the call and have missed, okay, I see some concern about the form. If you have missed the form and you are on the platform, maybe you can just send me a message, and the form will be shared with you, because we have to end the meeting now so that we can allow participants to go and prepare for tomorrow's session. If that is okay, but I believe everyone has filled the form. If not, you can reach out to me either via mail or on the WhatsApp platform privately, so that we can see how the form will be open for you to fill. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for your commitment once again, for your contributions and your time. I hope we are able to meet your expectations for joining this session. Thank you very much, and we hope to reconvene tomorrow. I'll be happy to hear from you guys again tomorrow. Thank you and bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, I see a hand, Azita. Do you have something you want to say? Okay, I don't think Azita is here. Maybe that was an omission, so.
Oui, allô? Désolé, I have one question. I want to know that if tomorrow we will start at the same time, because
Yes.
today when I connected, it was 12 p.m., but I say that the meeting is begin before this time. So I want to know if it
Okay,
is
so when we say 12 p.m., it's 12 p.m. West African time. So you have to convert it to your time. I don't know what time you are using, but we're starting 12 p.m. West African time, and it is that's like 11 a.m. GMT.
okay.
That's like 11 a.m. GMT.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Sorry.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.